In there is sweet music. This cave, as all caves were, is the entrance to the other world. Another such cave in the legends of Cucullin had before its entrance 3 trees of purple crystal, in which the birds sing softly without ceasing. If a man out hunting went into that cave, he would, in the sweet and pleasant land, be feasting, gazing upon beauty, consulting with warriors and gods, and he would be there for a year and a day, but in reality he would only have departed from his earthly companions for a moment or two. Now what the cave represents is a duality in the Celtic psyche, an awareness of the available miracles in time and space, a belief in the imagination that things are and can be what you make of them.
Boo-doo-boo-boo-doo-doo. Welcome to the show. What's going on? All right. I think the most interesting thing that I've stumbled upon in my searchings would be duality. It's just like something that I've always kind of understood existed. You know, it's always been around. It's always been slightly understood, but I've never really thought about it. I just kind of took it for face value. You hear the idea of like, yeah, there's a duality. And you're just like, yeah, of course there's dumb fuck. Like there's this, there's that, you know. There's a man, there's a woman. There's a thought, there's an action. There is this opinion to that opinion, right? Everything's kind of acting upon each other in many senses, right? And I used examples before about action and reaction in many different senses, right? But I guess pondering deeper about what duality is something that I never allowed myself to go, because I guess I didn't see the purpose of it. I didn't even know there could be a purpose of it. And to me, the beautiful thing about working on this book and doing this channel is it's making me kind of do things. It's making me explore things that I never would have thought to explore or cared about. There's so many aspects of this world and of our minds and of everything around us that just gets to me in a sense of like, I need to understand this to take it into the book. And I don't necessarily know why, and I've explained it before in a sense of the book to me is like this foundation place. It's where I go to take everything I'm kind of figuring out in life and place it here, and I'm trying to like reconstruct in this imaginary place all the shit that I'm finding out in our material world, the real world. And that is kind of some sort of method of understanding. But the one I want to talk about now, or at least try to muse through, would be duality and what it is. And let's kind of get into a little bit of an explanation from the last video and see how we think duality works. As we live in this material world, however you want to call it, you know, the universe that exists all around us, this always seems to be, at least in our minds, a duality of life. There is this, so there must be that. If I do this, there's a reaction to that, right? Everything we know is reactionary. That's it, all action and reaction, right? Which begs the question, what is duality to me in my life, and how does that affect the story that I'm working on? That's gonna be a long one. Okay. Well, I've kind of explained a bit what duality is to me. It's just an understanding of these two opposites. At least that's how I see it. It's a yin and the yang. It's the positive and the negative. It heavily affects us in ways, and a lot of times we don't even realize it. Maybe it would be best to explore it through what the internet could say. Let's use that chat GPT again. Let's see what that can say about duality. We'll ask some questions. All right, let's get into this. So let's just say, what is duality? Right? It's a concept that appears in various fields, each with its own specific interpretation. Ooh, don't go down. Mathematics and physics, duality often refers to a relationship between two seemingly different concepts or structures that are actually equivalent or mirror of each other. Oh man, that's already right out the gate. Now, man, I'm going to be honest with you guys. This is out of my wheelhouse, okay? In linear algebra, duality refers to the relationship between a vector space and its dual space, which consists of all linear functions, linear maps, from the vector space to its field of scalars. I don't know, I've never heard of any of that. In optimization, particularly in linear programming, duality involves a pair of problems, the primal and the dual problem. Solutions to the dual problem provide bounds on the solution to the primal problem. I don't know what the fuck that was about. Physics, wave-particle duality. This is a fundamental concept in quantum mechanics where particles like electrons and photons exhibit both wave-like and particle-like properties. For instance, light can behave as a wave, as seen in inference patterns, but also as discrete particles, photons, when interacting with matter. Okay, guys, I'm sorry. None of that made any fucking sense to me. Let's go to 3. This one might make more sense. Philosophy and metaphysics. Duality might refer to the idea that reality consists of two fundamental and often opposing aspects. For example, the concept of mind-body dualism persists, I don't know what that word is, that the mind and body are distinct and separable entities. Cognitive science and psychology. Duality can describe the coexistence of contrasting processes or states within the human mind, such as consciousness versus unconscious thought or reason versus emotion. In each context, duality highlights the presence of two interrelated aspects that, despite appearing different, are interconnected and often provide a deeper understanding of the system or phenomena they describe. Okay, well, you kind of gave me a little bit more of that side of the brain that I don't use very often. I don't know what any of that really was. I can only grasp at straws on that shit. What about duality philosophically? In philosophy, duality often refers to the idea that reality can be divided in two fundamental, distinct, and often opposing aspects. This concept appears in various forms and contexts. We already talked about the mind-body dualism. What is that? Descartes proposes that the mind and body are fundamentally different substances. The mind is non-material and conscious, while the body is material and operates in the physical realm. Yeah, it's kind of like a vessel. It's your vehicle. This dualism raises questions about how the two interact and influence each other, a problem known as the mind-body problem. I don't know. I've always kind of thought that the mind is its own vehicle, in which inside of that vehicle there are many different aspects of, I guess we could say, to keep it simple but kind of ethereal, would be like there's many different spirits, there's many different, we could say, emotions that are a fragmented part of many different beings that can exist inside of you. And each day another one kind of comes forth, and each day you become another person in a sense, you know. If you kind of look back at your life on a daily aspect and you really examine it, at least for me, I notice that every single day I live, I'm not exactly the same person. I'm just the same vehicle inside of this. So I always often wondered if there was many beings writhing within the mind. So if I could say the mind is its own vehicle, the body is the vehicle of something quite different, and it's not really anything I've ever explored in my life. And, you know, what exactly is the body and how does it work and what is it doing in this material realm? It's nothing that I've explained too much in my life, but it's definitely something I should, ponder at the very least, just because when I go back to the book, I say, Eris is this physical being that lives inside of the material world. Eris is the being that lives inside of this material world here, and he is acting upon it in his own way. He's just some kid, right? But writhing within him is an essence of his own creator, and his own creator needs to use him in many different aspects for his own purpose. And we've kind of got into that slightly. But to suffice to say, to really delve into what the body is, I'm going to have to understand how it plays upon it inside of this world here. Because this world is a place in which manifestation can occur when the mind is in the right place. So for instance, Eris will only really ever feel the presence of his creator in high emotional states or like dreamlike states. It's like he has to kind of take that vessel and turn it off or shift it in a sense. Whether that be the spirits that come forth and relay the information coming back, the interpreters of the situation, or the dreamlike state, which is your mind going into another realm entirely and exploring that. It's difficult to say that it is the dream realm, its original realm or not. I don't know. But let us read on for more. Dualism and metaphysics. Some philosophical systems propose dualist views about the nature of reality. For instance, dualistic cosmology. This view points, I've never heard of that word in my life, that reality is divided into two fundamental, often opposing forces or principles. In the ancient philosophy, this might be seen as yin-yang, concept of Taoism, which represents the balance of opposite but complementary forces in the universe. That's something we kind of touched on a tiny bit, and I think that you kind of understand that. Moral dualism. This involves the division of moral values or entities into opposing categories, such as good versus evil. For example, in Zoroastrianism, there is a dualistic conflict between the forces of good, Ahura Mazda, and evil. I think that's Agra Manu. Never heard of that one. That's something that as human beings, I don't know. You know, it's interesting because I grasp the concept of good versus evil. I really do. But I often wonder about it. I guess I don't really put too much stock into that. It's not something that I really, I don't know. It's not, I've never really thought about it too much, good versus evil. I've understood they've existed, sure, but let's say in the book, my whole fucking purpose was to say, okay, we have to make every faction a reaction to another faction. So if you have Oapake trying to do what he's trying to do, well, who's trying to oppose him? Well, that would be the Titans. Okay, fantastic. Let's go to the material realm. What about those that follow Oapake? What about those that follow his word, you know, the disciples of? Well, there's got to be someone against that. Right? So I'm like, okay, that would be Keepers versus Nainiran. Great, fantastic. And it's like, okay, well, let's go lower than that. What about those people that are in high-class society, politically? Well, that'd be mankind and their structures of the Aevan society and the Idrirics Chantry. So that's their political / you know, it's kind of like thinking of a Jedi's. And then you mix that with the Chantry, which sounds exactly like it is. It's the Idrirics Chantry, so that means it's the religious factor of it and the religious understanding of the Whisper. Well, what would be the contrast? What would be the dualism to that? Well, in the story, that would have to be some being working against that. So who doesn't want the Whisper worship and Oapake worship? Well, that would be somebody that either is or works for a Titan. And so it just keeps going down the line. And as I kept going down, I realized you got to make one and the other. And it's always a response. So for me, it was never like the people that are against Oapake and mankind are evil. Like, no, they're not. But maybe they are to people in mankind. But generally, if I think about life, I'd say it's just a response. There is no good and evil necessarily. I mean, I guess there can be true evil where you're just going on murdering people for no fucking reason, but even then you have a reason. Like everything is a response to something. And there's like this spectrum of like how we go about that response. If someone does something that you don't like and it sets you off in such a way that you decide that whoever they are and what they stand for, those people need to die, that's still a response. And then it's like, well, then is that a wicked response? What is the spectrum of responses here? And I guess that would be the place that you can kind of look into what is good and evil. But again, if I go back to my book, I made sure that every character, every faction, every religion, every group, every god was a good guy in their own understanding, which means, in a sense, I said, put your case to me and I'll decide if you're good or bad. And I've never met a character that I thought, yeah, you're the evil one. You're the dark one. The most evil person you could say sounds like the Whisper because he is the embodiment of fear manifested through the minds of mankind, and he's spreading like a virus. That doesn't sound like that could be a good thing. But if you put it the right way, it can't be evil. If you are living your life and you're doing the only thing you could understand, it's like saying a tick is evil.
or a virus is evil. Like, can you say that when it's only doing what it was designed to do and it was made to do? Can you define that as evil? Like, you go to the fantasy setting, can you truly define the orcs as evil? Well, they do evil acts. They act evilly, don't they? Well, they don't know anything else. So is that truly evil? You know, I guess that would be the thing when it comes to dualism in that moral sense, to me at least. Let's look at epistemological dualism. This refers to the distinction between different kinds or sources of knowledge. For instance, some philosophers differentiate between empirical knowledge, gained through sensory experience, and rational knowledge, gained through intellectual reasoning. I don't know. I mean, I guess I never really thought about that one as well, empirical knowledge. Sensory, like what I feel and see and touch and all that shit. The knowledge of that or the knowledge through intellectual reasoning, I don't know. That's foggy to me. It feels like that's very gray in my life. It's something that I can't like nail down. Like, yep, I'm this guy. It almost feels as if, like for me, sensory knowledge, that's just something I've done before and I've learned my lesson. If it's through my senses, like, yeah, don't look at that because last me looked, it was this, or don't touch that because it fucking burns you. Like, that could be that. And when it comes to intellectual reasoning, that's just, if you're gaining something through intellect, you're using your mind. So in many senses, that could be seen as a higher intellect a higher knowledge in that regard. Ontology and duality. In ontology, dualism can refer to the nature of being and existence. For instance, substance dualism argues that there are two kinds of substance, mental and physical, while property dualism suggests that mental properties are distinct from physical properties, even if they are properties of the same substance. Interesting. It really is. And that kind of still goes right back to the idea of the mind and the body, right? And that goes into the book as when Eris, the young hero, is living through his life and he's being told that he's supposed to be this prophetic being. He's supposed to aid his creator. And there are groups such as the Seeker Of Duality who guide him, who aid him in this process because their grand teacher was one who served Duality as well. So when they're trying to guide Eris in this understanding, they know that he has the physical properties of a lowly being such as a such as a mortal. Yet, there are these mental properties that are untapped within his mind. And that's kind of the theme of the book, why it's called Forgotten. It's the idea that there is something writhing within you that can be awoken, can come to, in a sense. But the idea was to trace in a way of, what if that idea, that thing, that mind, was a god of itself? Or something that can reflect that creator? But at the same time, dualistically, it does play on the philosophy of, as human beings, we do tend to suppress some of the darker things that happen to us. And that was why I chose to say when Oapek speaks to Eris, he's saying, I need to know what happened to my wife. I need to know why she betrayed me. And the only way that Eris knows what he was talking about is because he replayed in his mind the event that came to be known as a snake in the portal. The event that was basically the moment in which the world changed, when the Forgotten King became trapped in the other realm, after he was trapped in the world tree. And how Dove himself was freed from his prison so that he could aid mankind, though he fades quietly in the dark. So it's definitely something that plays inside of that. The physical properties would be also dualistically opaque, physically kind of distributed in like many different like areas of the world, within people and places, within his portals, within the shards, and within the beings that he's chosen. These beings that were born and have been alive since the beginning. These ones. The discovery of mankind hidden deep dark in the forest, before they were given light, before Tan was given light. Quinlan discovered these beings. Instead of destroying them, he let them live. these beings were all different aspects hidden in the masses. So there's thousands of these humans being born, but the ones in the front here, including these guys, are all major characters in the story that have this amnesia, that keep living and living and dying and living and dying, and they've been around since the beginning of time. And in the stories, these are the beings that need to unite once again as Oape, because he birthed himself within the creation of mankind. I mean, his own creation. Anyway, that's something that's book stuff. We'll get into that eventually. Oh, okay. Fuck. So what does it mean to me? Well, in a sense, it means a lot of things. That kind of reaffirmed how I was kind of in my mind. It's like it's everywhere and it's in many different things. We just don't necessarily take that into consideration. You just say, yeah, dualism. You're like, yeah, no shit, like whatever. But it is in many different aspects explored through kind of human ideas, from symbology to language to philosophically and apparently mathematics and other shit like that. I'll be honest, man, the mathematics part, none of that made any fucking sense to me because I don't know what any of that shit was. I don't even know if I finished algebra in high school, so it's not my mind. Now, what does it mean to me in the books? Well, as I was saying before, it means everything. In creation, in the making of certain societies, certain ideas, certain philosophical belief systems, there had to be a dualistic element to it, right? And in that dualistic element, it was just merely a response to mankind in the stories, from an Anaku point of view, are stealing the essence of the Anaku, and in fact, because they're doing that, the Anaku are slowly fading from the world, because their gods' influence are slowly fading from the world. The only thing that gave them power was the Titans, and the Titans only draw power through worship. Well, if the Anaku are being plagued and being turned feral or vanishing from the world because of what they believe to be mankind's fault and the Forgotten King's fault, why wouldn't they think that? What is evil about that thought process? Mankind exists in this world, and because they do, we're fading from it. Is that an evil response to say, well, fuck them, we have to destroy mankind? I don't see that as an evil response. I just see that as it's a little bit over the top, but it's a necessary kind of response. And let's go to mankind. Mankind was only born here because of their creator. They had no choice in the matter, and so they live. But they live hard lives, like very short ones compared to the Anaku, who live almost semi-immortal. Well, these beings toil and toil, and when they die, they know they're coming back. There's no reprieve to this toil for mankind, but in many different senses, it's allowed them to see more of the beauty of the world, to help be a part of the beauty of the world, something the Anaku didn't necessarily have, because the world for them was a picture. It was a mental image of true beauty. But mankind is acting inside of this world. And then they see these Anaku who look at them as these evil beings, and it's merely because their creator said about things that destroyed everything for the Anaku. You could see how the Anaku are evil to them. They're like, well, fuck these guys. Like, we're not doing anything wrong. In fact, we're trying to make this world better. But you go back to the Anaku, and all mankind ever does is fight each other. Land stealing and all this stupid fucking shit that we get into. So you have these two aspects playing against each other, but could you truly define who's evil and who's not? I mean, I know I can't. Like, I look at mankind, I'm like, well, that's all they know. Their creator isn't a part of their lives. He never gave them tenets. He never gave them instruction. The Titans were given, they gave instruction to the Anaku. Mankind didn't receive anything. So they're on their own morally. It's like saying an atheist now. It's like saying someone who just lives their life according to their own morals and the morals of society around them. And they use aspects of logic to help them defer for things that are right and wrong. Right? How would they know any better? Because with all that being said, their true compass has been lost. So they're only merely acting and responding to material things. But that means they're not being aware of what is immaterial acting upon them. Within their minds, what kind of worlds inside of what kind of planes of existence are being tormented. Not only just because they're cut off from ascension, like the Anakus used to be a part of, and all the beings inside the circle above them, they are living this perpetual fucking circle of like rebirth, 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 rebirth. And it's like, there's always the idea that there's a tinge of memory, but generally there's not. It's just, this will be a higher class understanding that we believe that we have been reborn. A peasant wouldn't be dwelling on like, yeah, my last life I must have done. That information's not relevant to a smaller person, according to the aristocrat society. Just, why would they need that? Keep toiling, right? So those are the aspects of it. And I mean, it can be even farther inside of societies in mankind. In a country called the Drana, you have the Aevan Society. The Aevan Society, you could look at them like Jedi. And you mix the Jedi with, like in Harry Potter. It's like they go to their special school, the Abeco College. But these Jedi, in a sense, are also the landholders of this country. So it's kind of unfair to say, but these human beings, were chosen because of the wealth they had, and they have certain specific ties when it goes to their connection to the birth of their race. And they're seen as higher class society, and they will always be that way. Right? Monarchy and shit. And only they have the power to utilize magic in their society. But they also have the power to rule that society. And the belief system is that, well, they are the conduit for mankind. So mankind's consciousness, the unshaped consciousness that mobs have, when a bunch of people get together without a figurehead, it's destruction, right? These Aevans are the mind. They are the consciousness of the mob. And that's why you would say they rule different lands. Like, I rule this land because all the people inside of it need someone to tell them what to do. It's like, that's just how people work. Now there's structure inside of that, but generally your job is to take from these people. The Aevans draw power from the people, and through that they can use their magic and influence society in that way. Could you say that that's kind of a dark process? If you are one of those poor fucking people living in, like, let me see. If you're one of those poor people living just on a farm somewhere and you see that, you're like, wow, that's all they've ever known. Bunch of fucking rich people always getting what they want. You go to the people that are in the Aevan Society and they say, like, all we have to do is struggle, 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 and then go off into these realms, and for some reason our priests are having us search for Oapake. But every time we go there, you can go mad. You could lose yourself or be destroyed because those beings that exist out there are destructive to mankind beyond the astral realm. Is that fair to them? So there's a lot of different aspects of that just in human society in the book. Let alone fucking Anaku society. And those are hive mind beings generally, but then they've kind of fragmented. They've, in their own little individual forests, kind of fragmented from each other. And we have some Anaku that are exiled Anaku that have left their home forests. So there's a whole thing there. And then we have the higher beings always in confliction with each other. So the idea of dualism, in the sense of the book, is just a play on a response. I make this, what's opposing that? That is another thing. But the main thing that I'll close this out with is, in saying all that, I always try to find the ternary. Because it's like, that would be binary. Dualism is binary. One and one, they act upon each other. You have the third one, who can take different aspects of it, and that would be like higher egregore consciousness, and basically shift it and say, like, no, you are right in this aspect, and you're right in that one. But can we find a middle ground? Can we find an idea of how to make this whole? Because that would be positive and negative. It's why you find yourself, I mean, at least in my life, I'll say, I find myself, I always do the best when I'm with people that are my complete opposite.
I've always been really, good with women, right? I've always been good with people that have no, like, I'll say these things and they don't believe any of it. Like, they're either an atheist or they're a logical based person. You know what I mean? Like, I always do best with my opposites because they have such a differing opinion and a different outlook in the world as opposed to mine. When we get together, it's very interesting how to shape it and how to see things mutually, I think that's key. So in my life and in the book, ternary, or the third way, the middle way, is something that I try to explore and something that I will have Eris always be. Because every time in the books, he's brought to a situation and someone else is telling him what he should be. But there's also that response to it of like, yeah, but they're against this person. This guy doesn't like that guy. This faction is going against that one. He's always the one in the middle. It's like, and he'll have to learn how to be ternary in the situation. Or something like that. But we're going to cut the stream there. And hopefully that's somewhat of an interesting and kind of a little bit of allowing you into the book more explanation of dualism in the story and in my life. We'll see.